We all know the infamous world of John Wick, an assassin who retired from the bloodstained life that he lived to settle down with his wife to have a peaceful existence. That is until the group that he tried so hard to desperately escape dragged him back into the fray and sent him on another bloody path of revenge. Now imagine if this story was set in an anime and you have the perfect summary of one of the hottest new shonen manga out right now, Sakamoto Days. If you guys haven't heard about this beauty of a story yet, I want to take today's video to talk about why I think it's an absolute peak experience and why you should all check it out. From its smoothly enjoyable story, charismatic, hilarious, and badass cast of characters, to the potentially most amazing fights that I've seen before in manga, I knew when first picking this up that it was going to be something special. And if you've heard about it or read it, let me hype this manga up big time and talk about why it quickly became something I binge read over the course of 2 weeks. So without any more delay, let's jump into why I think Yuto Suzuki's Sakamoto Days is deserving of all its hype. While the story isn't overtly deep in any sort of meaningful way, the method in which Suzuki crafts this story is so incredibly cool. And you're probably going to hear that word a lot throughout this video because that's exactly what this manga is. Just plain cool. The story starts off as your typical slice of life comedy where you simply just see the main protagonist, Taro Sakamoto, tending to his store. Literally the most unassuming guy. You have no idea that he's actually the badass that is feared all across the criminal underworld and just loves the fact that he prioritizes his family above everything else. And it's not like Sakamoto's arrogant or brags about these things, but actually he's one of the quietest protagonists that we've seen for quite a while in manga. And that's where the beauty of the side character Shin comes in. While I won't talk too deeply about Shin and his character in this video, he's incredibly important for the overall plot in the story. This isn't a major spoiler, but we learned very early on in chapter 1 that his whole thing is reading the minds of others and capitalizing them in fights. And this indirectly serves as the plot device for Shin being able to read the minds of Sakamoto to see what he's thinking, which is usually some hilarious depiction of him killing Shin in some messed up and brutal way. These funny and little scenes that really add to how different characters bond with one another and make the relatively chill slice of life portions of the story more enjoyable and entertaining. But I'll be honest with you, if you're not into deep stories with high-level thematic ideas, then this manga may not be your cup of tea. However, something that can't be dismissed and is the case for another manga that I love being One Piece is that the characters throughout the story are just plain and simply fun to read and experience. Now, let me just get this right off the bat and say that the characters in Sakamoto Days aren't the most deep per se, but make up for this depth in their own unique and really charismatic ways. And I think it goes without saying, but you would probably not be so invested in the series or manga as a whole if the characters weren't likable. I think that's just a given. But the minor character arcs that we get throughout the manga, and even more so their interactions with one another, is what kept me constantly coming back for more. Let's take Taro Sakamoto for example. I think he's an amazing protagonist, but he doesn't necessarily meet or check all the boxes for one in a traditional sense. Like I mentioned before, he's a silent protagonist, but that works to make him that much more of a likable character. You see, the thing that Yuto Suzuki does so well and highlights with this character is that his actions speak 10 times as loud as his words. And it's these actions that make him hilarious, but on another level, just simply charismatic. And you're gonna hear that word a lot because it's true and my vocabulary is just I think that a character doesn't necessarily have to have a defining moment that makes them great, and what makes Sakamoto so entertaining is the combination of his kindness, nonchalant nature, and plain and simple how he could just kill you in 1 second if he really wanted to. And during battles when things get intense, Sakamoto has the ability to transform into what's known as his skinny form, where he sheds all the fat on his body, resembling what he looked like during his time with the Order. And it's through these transformations that Suzuki uses to communicate Sakamoto's personality shifts throughout the course of the story. Obviously, when he's in his fat form, he could still demolish most people, but when he enters his skinny form, it lets us know that his life may truly be in danger, which is a narrative that I think Suzuki uses to take the story from funny to serious. Also, given that we're never introduced to Sakamoto during his time with the Order, these transformations give us insight on what he was like in his past as the top-ranked assassin, giving us the answer of who this family man was back in his heyday. With these transformations, while kind of cliche, I found it really refreshing to see how Sakamoto retains the personality of his fat self while even in his skinny form. In other words, he's a ruthless killing machine, yes, however that strength is all channeled towards protecting his friends, family, and those he cares about. This truly paints Sakamoto in a kind fashion and shows us that he's not just playing the role of a nice guy while hiding a shady nature below the surface. But that's not to say that some pretty epic moments await once we see that skinny form come out, because it's truly a treat to witness. In a way, the character of Sakamoto, to me, challenges what a conventional main character should be. I think that it ultimately comes down to your preferences, but a main character who's funny, charismatic, or charming is better than a deep, complex main character, and an argument can definitely be made for both sides. I love a deep emotional story more than the next person, don't get me wrong, but on the other side of the coin, there's just something that's so enjoyable to me about sitting back and reading about characters where I just resonate with their charisma. And it's through this very charisma where Sakamoto Days truly stole my heart. It's not like you need to have a deep story to truly entertain the reader, and this manga is direct proof of that, with it being the most entertaining experiences I've had in a while. But let's move the focus away from Sakamoto and onto the rest of the supporting cast, because while I think Sakamoto is incredible and does his job at being the main protagonist super efficiently, he wouldn't be the same if he didn't have the wide array of characters that surrounded him. First and foremost, you have Shin, who is someone I believe brings the audience back down to reality and understands what it's like to work for a win in each and every battle. Unlike Sakamoto and the generally overpowered cast of characters, Shin feels like the traditional main protagonist, given that he has so much that he wants to learn and grow from. He's a rookie that's still making a name for himself, but has shown glimmers of promise and improvement throughout his fights in the manga. And this is a theme that makes me heavily invested in Shin as a character. His end goal is to be on par with Sakamoto, and his character arc centers around not being a burden to the legendary assassin, but rather an equal. This truly connected me with Shin and had him be a character that I could relate to and cheer for throughout the story, leading to me being genuinely excited by his growth and increased prowess. And we can visibly see him picking up on many of Sakamoto's traits, showcasing his end potential to be at or potentially greater than the titular assassin. Besides that, we have the amazing cast of Lu, Heisuke, Aoi, and Hana. And while Aoi and Hana don't contribute greatly to the narrative of the story, they showcase the family man side of Sakamoto that leads to some really funny moments. Whether it's getting beat up by old ladies at the mall to get the backpack Hana wanted, or following his wife's rule of not taking a life, these two are the characters that highlight Sakamoto's humanity. Lu and Heisuke are both enjoyable and entertaining characters in their own right, but the one thing about this manga that I wish Suzuki would highlight more is their involvement in the more major parts of the story. Apart from the super sick sniper battle that we see Heisuke get into that was undeniably awesome. Nonetheless, I still think they're both great additions to the narrative and help strengthen the manga's comedic effect during the downtime. And as we expand to the world outside of Sakamoto's shop, we get introduced to possibly the coolest characters with the involvement of the Order and Slur's gang, with my favorites hands down being Shishiba, Nagumo, and Gaku. But you can basically pick any character from these groups and they're all amazing in their own unique ways. Osaragi is quirky while also being an absolute menace in combat. Hyo is a Chad with a hardworking personality. And Takamura is quite literally bloodlust incarnate. But by and large, what I'm trying to get at is that you'll never be bored reading this manga. Whether the story focuses on Sakamoto or not, you can be sure that whatever characters are on the page, you will be deeply entertained. Now, till this point, I've mainly been talking about the story and the characters of the manga, but it would be a crime not to mention the fights, which are hands down my favorite thing about this masterpiece. Sakamoto Days is the greatest series when it comes to its combat and overall fight spectacle. And I think we would all be lying to ourselves to say that this isn't the case. Suzuki's creativity and ingenuity when it comes to setting the stage for incredible fights is just simply mind-blowing. Between the drip of each character, how insane each of their different weapons are, and the endless ways that Sakamoto can make a weapon out of his environment made the world feel like the assassin's playground, and I would never know what direction a fight would go in. Overall, the best way I would describe reading Sakamoto Days is easy and smooth beyond belief. At the time of recording this video, there have been 184 chapters released, and I can tell you that those chapters fly by in an instant. So with all that being said, please check out this glorious manga. I promise you won't be disappointed. If you like this video, comment on any other Sakamoto Days or anime related content you'd like to see me cover. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll chat with you all in the next one. Stay curious, anime fam. Peace.